What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Look at This Reviews and Rants. My name is Rob, and today I'm going to do something different than I've done so far on my channel. I'm going to utilize that second part of my channel name, Rants, and I'm going to talk about a hot button topic, Tesla. Stay tuned. Okay, now before I get started, I want to just clear up two things here. First of all, I don't hate Tesla, and I don't hate Elon Musk. I actually adore Tesla. I think that they are a groundbreaking company that has made huge things happen in the automotive world. Whether or not they're going to make it long term, I still think it's up in the air. But I think Tesla's a really cool company. And I don't hate Elon Musk. Actually, I'm a little bit of an Elon fanboy. I go through phases. Every now and then, he says things that make me question how in the world he's gotten himself into this position of power and wealth. And I'll get to this more in the future, later in this video. But just suffice it to say, for now, I actually really like Elon Musk, okay? The second thing you need to know is my involvement, my past in the auto industry. So I spent 20 years in the auto industry, actually over 20 years. I started as a detailer, my first job washing cars at a Mitsubishi lot here in Wichita, Kansas. And in my last position in the auto industry, having spent the last 10 years with Volkswagen, I was a service director over multiple service departments, multiple dealerships. So by proxy, even though I haven't done anything in the sales side, I've always been fixed operations, okay? Parts guy, service advisor, technician, service manager, service director. I've always done those things. Never been on the sales side, but by proxy, I'm familiar with the sales process and I know all about it and how it works, as well as finance and all those things. So I know my stuff when it comes to cars, and I know cars. Being a service manager for all those years, I had to know how cars worked and operated and how the system works. Today, we're going to talk about Tesla service because this is right in my wheelhouse. And just last week, electric.co came out with an article. And the article is Tesla wants to hire someone to eliminate the need for its EVs to get service. I read this article and I went on a Facebook rant. I made a long post on Facebook just kind of highlighting some of my concerns. Back in 2016, I actually wrote a post on my Facebook page, another long rant about Tesla's model, and said that it was not sustainable. And I'm going to get to the reasons why here in just a moment. But let me just point out the highlights from this article on electric. So Tesla is in search of a new senior manager who will focus on eliminating the need for the automaker service. They will be in charge of a new program called Zero Service. At times, Tesla's fleet growth has greatly outpaced its service growth, and that means significant issues and wait times for owners to get their vehicles serviced. Pause here. I have several friends that have Teslas, and they have all said the same thing. They get a flat tire, it's a pain in the ass to get it fixed. Just something as simple as that. Here in Wichita, Kansas, the closest service centers are Oklahoma City, which is down I-35 about 2.5 hours, or Kansas City, which is up I-35 about 2 hours. So there's nowhere in Wichita for me to service a Tesla. Obviously, if you're in one of the bigger areas, you can go to a Tesla service center, but still, the wait times are not ideal. Tesla has made large investments in service, and they've done a slightly better job, but still a lot of room for improvement. And actually, Elon alluded to this in this article. He said, the best service is no service, and we understand there's room for improvement, but if the cars don't need service in the first place, then we don't need great service. We don't need great service because the cars don't need service. And so this kind of drives me nuts. Now, as an entrepreneur myself, I left the auto industry. I now run my own business, Bison. I understand that there is customer support and customer service. The difference between these two things is this. Customer support is a proactive approach. You're improving your product, you're improving your processes, you're building more value in the product to your customer, you're educating them, you're giving them all the tools so that they don't need your customer service. They have everything they need. They have a great product that they're not going to need you. That's customer support. Customer service is reactive. That's when something goes wrong with the product or the process, and then they have to involve you, and you're on defense, and you're scrambling, and you're backpedaling. You're just trying to make this person happy enough to get them back out of your hair. Two totally different things. And customer support is a far better approach than customer service. So I look at this and I say, okay, this kind of falls into the category of customer support, customer success. Elon is trying to give his customers a product that they won't need to service, and that is admirable. However, let's go a little bit further. All right, Tesla doesn't use a traditional franchise dealership model, okay? Back in 2016, my Facebook rant, I touched on this because at the time I worked, of course, in dealerships. And I said, you know, as somebody who is a manager in a dealership, I can tell you that a huge part of customer success is the customer interacting with a positive person at the dealership. And that has to start from the top. It has to start right from the beginning with the sale of the car, but it continues through the ownership, through the life of that customer's ownership of the vehicle, of course, into service, into parts, and then therefore into the next sale. And that's really what customer success is all about, is retention. You want to retain that customer and get them to buy from you again. The easiest way to turn somebody off on that is to detach them from a positive one-on-one experience. Now, my last dealership, my last auto group, our dealer principal, the owner of the dealerships, brought me into his office one day and said, I want to spend $60,000 and install kiosks on our service drive and let all of the service advisors go. I want robots to take the order, and we want everything automated, no more people, and they just come in, they put everything on the tablet that they want, and then they leave. They never deal with a human. And I was adamantly against this for obvious reasons. And he said, we'll save so much money. And I said, that's not the point. We're going to lose retention. Retention is such a big key, and you will lose that if you have a robot taking the order. This is not a buy here, pay here lot where you have a kiosk and somebody coming in and making their car payment and then leaving. This is a service experience where the person is already anxious, possibly, about bringing their car in and leaving it with us. And now you're going to up that anxiety by taking the human element completely out, and they're just giving their keys to somebody, they drive it off, and they're having a kiosk take their order. You're not ordering Taco Bell. You're spending thousands of dollars on auto repairs and maintenance. Now, we didn't necessarily see eye to eye on that, this dealer principal and I. That's maybe part of the reason I'm not there anymore. However, I stand by that. You have to have a customer experience one-on-one all the time. And actually, automotive service, as much as we hate dealing with it, it's a huge part of customer retention and getting them to purchase a vehicle again. Do you know how many cars were sold when a customer came in and just dropped their car off and a salesman said, hey, that's a nice car. Do you want to trade it in? I hadn't really thought about it, but I'm probably due for a new car. I'm getting ready to spend $800 on a 40,000 mile service today. I guess I would talk to you about it. Next thing you know, they're leaving in a brand new Jetta. So there are pros to having a dealer model. Now, when it comes to franchises, I don't blame Elon for not wanting to deal with that. You know, there are some pitfalls. Ford is dealing with that right now. Ford does not really like their dealers, and the dealers don't like Ford. And it's kind of an ugly thing that they're going through. And Tesla has avoided that altogether by just saying, we will take complete ownership of the process start to finish. We don't want any franchises. Okay, that's fine. The problem is, again, I talked about this in 2016. If you want all the money, which is another element of this, okay, franchising, it creates a middleman. And the manufacturer has to pay the middleman, and the middleman gets a cut of the sale, obviously, from the customer. Not just the sale of the car, but the parts and the service, which is really that's what keeps the lights on. Fixed operations, parts and service is what keeps the lights on at any dealership, and it's the biggest source of income for the manufacturer. It's not actually selling you the car. You'd be surprised how many times you buy a car and that dealer breaks even or even loses money. And they lose money in the hopes that they are going to get kickbacks from the manufacturer for selling enough units that month. They get some kickbacks, they get some extra inventory, but mainly that you're going to come back and service that vehicle at their dealership. Elon says, we don't want franchises. We don't want to mess with it. What we're going to do is we're going to keep all the money, all the income to ourselves. And that's fine, but you better have your ducks in a row so you can deal with it, because it is hard to scale that up. And that's what Tesla's feeling now. I always thought that Tesla is going to have a hard time scaling this up. The more vehicles that they put out on the market and they sell, the more they're going to have to service. And you have to be able to keep up with that. Tesla took it a step further by saying, we're not going to build a traditional service facility structure. There's not going to be a service center in every city. We're going to come to you. We're going to have mobile mechanics. That's very hard to scale. As you have tens of thousands of vehicles in operation in a major metropolitan area, you're going to have people running around in Ford Transit vans trying to take care of these big repairs on these cars. It's just not scalable. When we talk about a dealer model, like a franchise model, you have a buffer. You have a buffer in the middle. And what that means is this franchise, the dealer, has to purchase parts from you. They have to hire technicians. They handle all the middle ground stuff, the customer-facing interactions. And that means we as a dealership, when I was at the dealership, I was responsible for hiring my technicians. The parts manager and I were responsible for how many parts and what parts we were going to stock. And we had to buy that inventory from the manufacturer. And Volkswagen reps would come in and say, guys, you got to meet your part allotment. You need to buy more parts. They'd say, we got all these parts. You guys need to buy them. And we would have to buy them. Okay? Tesla doesn't have that. Tesla owns their inventory, their stock, and they have to hold on to it. There's nobody in the middle to say, Tesla's like, man, we're having a tough month. We need to go out to our dealers and have them buy more parts. Can't do it because they don't exist. All the onus is on you. When it comes to hiring technicians and keeping them happy and making sure that the training and everything is happening and you're keeping tabs on all your people, well, that's a big job, and Tesla's responsible for it. There's no dealer in the middle to take care of it. The aftermarket is the other element here. So when a new vehicle comes out, let's use the Ford Bronco, for instance, okay? The Ford Bronco came out, brand new vehicle, and already the aftermarket, meaning like O'Reilly's, AutoZone, Parts Plus, Napa, whatever, they have parts for Ford Broncos. If your alternator goes out, your starter goes out, your control arm bushings need to be replaced, whatever, you can go to AutoZone and buy those for your Bronco. With Tesla, they've kind of taken the Apple approach, where everything's proprietary. They say, we are going to lock this down. There's no aftermarket, the software especially. Nobody's getting into this car except for us. The mechanical side of things, we are going to lock down the parts as much as we can. And what that's done has meant that you've bottlenecked everything right into your own doorstep. You have nobody there to call in for assistance. If your supplier comes up short giving you control arms that you ordered, Tesla's stuck. If they can't make the things that they've ordered, they're stuck. You don't have Moog out there, on the sidelines with control arm bushings ready to go at AutoZone, where you go to the dealer and say, oh, okay, Tesla's out of these control arm bushings. I'll go to AutoZone and buy the Moog ones. There is a very limited supply of aftermarket parts out there, and that's by design. That's all on Tesla. Again, they want the money to themselves. And once again, if you want all the money, you better damn sure have your processes in place. You better be paying the right people a good amount of money to make that happen. They haven't done a very good job at either of those things. And now they're paying the price. It is as simple as that. We've reached this point now where Elon says, all right, we got to figure something out. Rather than swallow his pride a little bit and say, okay, we're going to build more service centers. We're going to allow the aftermarket to get in on this a little bit. Instead, he's doubling down. When we talk about service, talk about a couple different things, repairs and maintenance. Teslas by nature don't need much maintenance. And really, they don't need many repairs because there aren't hundreds and hundreds of moving parts like there are in an internal combustion, a traditional vehicle. My Jeep, engine, transmission, transfer case, 2 axles, all the wheel bearings, everything goes along with that. With a Tesla, you have an electric motor or 2. You have the wheel bearings, but you have some suspension components, and that's really all that moves on the car. And replacing a motor, an electric motor, for instance, It's pretty straightforward. It's not like changing a gasoline or diesel engine. So these big repairs don't exist. And honestly, you might think that in, like, let's say a traditional dealer at the Volkswagen store where I used to work, you might think that changing the engine on a Volkswagen Touareg, where we have to drop the entire suspension cradle, the transmission, the engine, everything at once on a hydraulic table, and that costs $2,500 just to get to that point before we start taking it apart and replacing the engine. You might think that that $20,000 engine job is a home run grand slam. And it's great to have those every now and then, but the truth is they're a huge pain in the ass because they require tying up a bay for a long period of time. They require a very highly trained, highly skilled, and highly paid technician, and the potential for something going wrong during that job is very high. Bolts rust, they seize, they break. Threads strip in different items. Radiator hoses fall apart. Radiators break when you take them apart because they're brittle. Things like this happen during the course of a job. It ends up tying the bay up, tying the technician up longer, and then costing the customer more money during the process. And nobody's happy at the end of it. And really, we're just happy to see that vehicle get back out the door a lot of times. Conversely, when you have a vehicle that just comes in for an 80,000 mile service. So a Volkswagen comes in for an 80,000 mile service, you get a fuel filter, a cabin filter, an engine air filter, a timing belt, and water pump, along with all the pulleys. You get a transmission service, all these different things, and all of a sudden you're at $1,000. Technicians will literally fight over those tickets because all of that work that pays 12 hours, they can get done in like 3 hours. And they could do, as you could see, they could do like 3 of these a day and get paid for 40 hours of work. Those are the jobs that really keep service and parts centers going. They keep the lights on at the dealerships. Obviously, Teslas don't have those. You have cabin filters, you have brake fluid, you have tires. That's pretty much it. What you have then is this situation where Tesla's like, well, we don't have maintenance. We don't even have big repairs. So we shouldn't need these big service centers. And they're right. But I said this all along. The traditional service model doesn't work, obviously, for the reason I just said. You don't need a big service center for these little things here and there. But also, the system that they put in place isn't going to work because you can't scale it. You need to be able to do all these little itty-bitty things, but you're going to have a store to do it. You can't have mobile technicians running around and trying to take care of everybody. You can't have one service center in the entire state in Kansas City, while Topeka and Wichita and Dodge City and Hayes and all these other cities in Kansas, you just don't own a Tesla, I guess, because who's going to service it? Neither of these things work for Tesla. And I understand that's a challenge, but there should be a happy medium. Elon can't seem to find it. So now what he's doing, like I said, doubling down. Tesla has a new job posting right now for a senior manager of zero service. And in that job description, Tesla says the candidate will work to identify and eliminate the reasons for cars to need service. Okay, their words are, at Tesla, we believe that the best service is no service. We are looking for a highly motivated senior manager to join our service operations organization and lead the team responsible to identify and eliminate the reasons for our cars to require service. I put myself in these shoes. All right. As somebody who has a lot of experience in the automotive industry, and especially on the service side, would I apply for this job? All right. I got the wheels turning, and then I went to the next paragraph. This role will be both strategic and tactical and will include the designing solutions and managing individual campaigns to be executed with field teams and partners. The candidate will work closely with hardware and software engineering, service engineering, quality and service programs, and field teams to prioritize launch and track demand reduction and efficiency efforts. In other words, we need you to come in, tell us why our cars need service, and then tell us how to not have that happen. Bro, until you find a way to make suspension components differently, tires differently, software is one thing, but the hardware of these vehicles It's been perfected over 100 years. We know what works and what doesn't work. There's no tire technology that's going to make these cars non-serviceable. And actually, the biggest complaints that I've heard personally and that I've seen online have been with tires. Customers saying, why can't I just get my freaking tires serviced properly? I have a flat tire. Why does it take so long to fix it? And those customers are going to go to Hibden Tires or Tires Plus or Tire Rack to get their stuff instead of going to Tesla. And tires are a big source of income because when you pull the wheel off the car, you can see the brakes, you can see the suspension, everything's right there. It's a huge opportunity to upsell additional service. Anyways, Elon wants somebody, a wizard apparently, is what he's looking for. He's looking for a wizard to come in and wave a magic wand and make his cars not need service. That's not going to happen. Now, you can eliminate the maintenance side of things, but that's going to require some R&D. All right, so let's look at the cabin filter as an example. There's two different things that can happen with the cabin filter. One is you eliminate it altogether. And we've seen cars in the past that haven't had a cabin filter, usually econo boxes and stuff, but you could decontent the car and take the cabin filter away, but of course that decreases the ownership experience. Not having a cabin filter means not as nice place to be inside the car. The second thing you could do is pour some R&D into like a filterless or air filtration system. And they kind of already have this on their cars, but you still have to service it. I do think there's a way that you could R&D it enough to find a self-servicing solution to the interior air filtration. But that's really the only thing I could come up with. And then at that point, you put money into R&D, you have to raise the price of the cars. So, you know, it's kind of an offset there. If I was appointed the senior manager of Zero Service, what could I do to identify and eliminate the reasons for cars to need service? Listen, people are going to hit curbs and damage their wheels and suspension. People are going to have batteries die. The batteries are going to go out. Like, that's just going to happen. So you're going to have to replace batteries. There's hardware limitations here that Elon is not paying attention to. The biggest problem I have with this whole thing is that this feels like instead of opening the doors for Aftermarket to come in, kind of calling the cavalry saying, listen, all right, Aftermarket, come on, let's go. We'll license you some tech and we'll work out a partnership and you guys can help us with parts. And instead of allowing franchises to come in, same type of deal. Hey, let's have a little buffer here. You guys buy parts from us, stock them. Customers can come to you. Okay, good. Those are two easy solutions for this bottleneck we're seeing. Instead of doing that or building more service centers, just small little like quick point service centers for Tesla in, you know, smaller market areas such as Wichita, Kansas, instead of doing that, Elon's doubling down. And he's saying, if we can't have all of it, all of us will have none of it, meaning money. If we can't have all the service money from our cars, nobody's going to have any of it because we're going to make our cars not need service. That is so short-sighted in so many ways. I can't even fathom it. Elon gonna Elon, and that's the bottom line here. He's going to double down on his thoughts and ideals. He's not going to cave to the norm, and the norm is definitely service centers, touch points, and maintenance, and he's just not going to cave to that. So we have to just take it for what it is. If you own a Tesla, you're kind of stuck, and it looks like you're going to be stuck for a while as Tesla tries to figure this out. Not only that, but these cars that are already on the road, let's say that they're future cars, they make them zero service or whatever. What about all the tens of hundreds of thousands of Teslas that are already on the road? Are they just going to leave you guys out to dry? Because your cars are clearly not zero service. They've created a problem for Elon. And his solution is we're going to make different cars going forward. You know, screw those old ones. That's the way I interpret this. This is interesting. One last thing I want to mention here. I do have friends who are or were Tesla technicians, and they are telling me that there are problems internally. I've reached out to a couple of them and asked if they would give me some insight. They don't want to be quoted on camera, which I understand, but I will tell you that one of my friends just left Tesla because he did not get his bonus for last year. He was paid just a few $100s bonus for the annual, and he was insulted by it, honestly. So he told his manager, listen, I'm insulted by this. I didn't understand this was what was going to happen. And they said, we just didn't have enough service profit to pay our techs bonuses. So that's really interesting. You have really high demand for this service, but you can't turn enough profit to pay your technicians appropriately. There's a huge disconnect there for obvious reasons. That's just mismanagement, okay? So the same technician said that he started looking for a job. He told his boss. The boss came back and said, listen, what if we raised you to this amount? Would you stay? And he goes, yeah, actually, okay, I would consider staying, but does that mean I won't get my annual raise next year? Are you just bumping it ahead and not giving me my annual raise? And he says, well, I can't promise you you're going to get another raise. And he said, okay, I'm leaving. So, they're just trying to play a shell game. And you can't blame him for trying to keep him. Remember, this all starts at the top. And it's crazy how much you see this in these big corporations. I think Camping World is a big one with Marcus Lemonis. I'm in an RV, I live in an RV full time. Camping World has a terrible reputation in the RV industry right now. And it starts with Marcus Lemonis, the CEO of the company, and just his terrible ways of doing business. It trickles down to all the management, therefore the employees, and it just becomes the culture of the company. And that's what you're seeing at Tesla. You have this guy at the top that's kind of a dictator. I love Elon, but he runs things like a dictator sometimes. Look at what had happened to Twitter, or X, I guess it is now. What a dumb move that was. Anyway, he came in and he just ruined the culture of that company. Tesla is struggling. I can also tell you I'm a Starlink customer, Starlink is another one of these Elon companies. Okay, you have SpaceX, Tesla, the boring company, and of course Starlink. We had an issue with our Starlink. We were one of the first adopters of Starlink, and we had an issue early on. It took us like 4 weeks to hear back from somebody in customer service at Starlink. And when I finally did, this person got on the phone and said, I am so sorry. We are so understaffed and so overworked. We're doing our best. And thank you for being patient. Those are the exact words of the customer service rep. So this is not anything, I think you see this across the board with Elon's companies. And it's just one of those things I want to just man crush so hard on Elon. He does so many great things and he's so cool. And I look at his eccentricities and I'm like, I wish I could just be like that, but I can't get away with it. He somehow can. But when it comes to business stuff like this, there's a clear issue with the way Elon does things. So that's my rant for today. I want to know in the comments what you guys think about this whole topic and my points here. How do you think this is going to go for Elon in the short term and the long term? Because customer retention, I think, is going to suffer here. I think customer experience overall is going to suffer. I want to know what you guys think. So please put it in the comments below. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I got more stuff coming up. And of course, I'll do a follow-up on this later once there's more news. Thank you everybody for watching. I'll see you in the next video.